Pretty harsh on me the last day.
But that crossed the line yesterday, and I really did feel for him when it's shouts of, "Get in the bunker."
Police didn't intervene at the parking lot. They didn't step in at the gates. They walked onto the course during the final round of the U.S. Open while a player was trying to win a major championship. Wyndham Clark won it. 4 under par, 1 stroke over Sam Burns, his second U.S. Open title in 3 years. But what happened at Shinnecock Hills on Sunday had nothing to do with the leaderboard. Fans were physically removed by law enforcement mid-round on live television. The NBC broadcast caught it. Journalists on the ground documented it. And from the first hole to the back 9, the USGA said nothing. Clark started the day 6 shots clear. By the back 9, that lead was down to 1. A collapsing lead, a hostile gallery, a police response, all on the same Sunday afternoon. Here is the full account. The heckling didn't wait for Clark to hit a single shot. On the first hole, before he even addressed the ball, a voice came out of the gallery. "Canada hates you." That was the opening line. It would not be the worst thing said to him that day. By the second hole, "Don't choke," Wyndham was loud enough to be picked up by NBC's broadcast microphones. This wasn't crowd noise. This wasn't energy. This was a directed, personal chant aimed at one player on the biggest stage in American golf. By the 4th hole, law enforcement was already moving. Kevin Van Valkenburg, a senior journalist reporting from inside the grounds, documented the first confirmed ejection on X. A fan removed at hole 4. Golf Digest independently confirmed a minimum of 2 ejections through eyewitness accounts on site. Reports from the back 9 suggested the number climbed higher. At least 2 fans were removed. Reports from the back 9 suggest that number didn't stop there. What broadcast audio and journalists on the ground recorded throughout the round, "Get in the bunker," "Crash and burn," and 1 fan, audible on the NBC feed, singing the chorus of "Under Pressure" while Clark stood over his ball. Clark and his caddy John Pelletier had prepared for this. They had talked through the crowd scenario before the round even began. Clark told reporters afterward he woke up Sunday morning with a pit in his stomach. This was not atmosphere. This was not passion. This was organized hostility directed at one American player, at an American major, by an American crowd. The question is, why? And the answer didn't start at Shinnecock. To understand what Sunday actually was, you need 3 moments from the 12 months that came before it. Oakmont, June 2025. Clark missed the cut at the U.S. Open and left damage inside the Oakmont locker room, a facility with over a century of history. The story spread through golf media immediately. The USGA took no formal action. The PGA Tour issued no public statement. It circulated anyway. Louisville, May 2025. At the PGA Championship, Clark threw a driver after a bad shot. It came close to hitting a volunteer. The moment was caught on camera and spread widely. The tour issued no public discipline. The clip didn't need help. It moved on its own. Hamilton, June 2026. 1 week before Shinnecock, Clark played the RBC Canadian Open wearing a USA hockey jersey in Canada. The backlash was immediate and loud. That moment is the direct origin of "Canada Hates You," delivered 7 days later on the first hole of the U.S. Open. 3 incidents, 12 months, 0 formal consequences attached to any of them. What they built instead was a public identity. And Clark carried every single one of those incidents into Shinnecock Hills with him. New York crowds don't arrive neutral. They arrive with a verdict already formed. The Saturday drop controversy did something the USGA ruling couldn't undo. They cleared Clark before Sunday's tee time. The crowd had already made up its mind. If you're finding this breakdown useful and want this level of coverage every time something like this happens on tour, hit subscribe. We cover every major story every day without the noise. 6 shots. That was the margin. Sam Burns didn't survive the final round. He attacked it. He was making birdies on the front 9 while Clark was making bogeys. And every birdie Burns converted, the Shinnecock Gallery received the way a home crowd receives a hometown hero, because on Sunday, Burns functionally was the hometown hero. Clark made 5 bogeys across the round. The crowd responded to each one exactly the way a hostile crowd responds. Louder when he needed quiet, pointed when he needed to focus. By the back 9, the lead was 1 shot. 1. after starting the day with 6. Then came the 16th hole. Clark's approach came from the fescue. Difficult lie, maximum pressure. Everything that had happened over the previous 4 hours sitting on top of that shot. He made birdie. The gallery at 16 went quiet. Not politely, noticeably. That silence said more than the cheers had. He reached 18, two-putted for par, and it was over. 5 bogeys. 1 birdie at the exact moment it mattered most. 1 stroke over Sam Burns. Wyndham Clark, 2026 U.S. Open champion. The same crowd that spent 4 hours trying to break him watched him lift the trophy. Clark spoke to reporters shortly after the trophy presentation. He said this, "New York didn't really like me. I love you guys, but I get it. Some of it's self-deserved." He was not deflecting. He was not performing humility for the cameras. That is the U.S. Open champion, 90 minutes after police physically removed fans for heckling him, standing in a press room and telling the media that the hostility had legitimate grounds. That is not a redemption quote. That is something more complicated than that. He also said this, "I've played President's Cup and Ryder Cup on foreign soil, and it kind of had that atmosphere." Scottie Scheffler was asked directly about the crowd conduct at his own press conference. He didn't soften it. He said, "Sometimes it can get a little too much when balls are going off greens and you start hearing cheers. That felt a bit much to me." The USGA, as of this report, has not addressed the crowd conduct publicly. Not a statement, not a press conference answer, not a single word. That silence is not a footnote. It is a news fact. Here is where this stands. Wyndham Clark won the 2026 U.S. Open with 5 bogeys, a lead that fell to 1 stroke, and a gallery that required a law enforcement response. He won it out of the fescue on 16 and a lag putt on 18. He won it while standing in the press room minutes later and saying some of what he received was deserved. The USGA has not addressed what happened in that gallery. Scottie Scheffler's Grand Slam pursuit continues, the U.S. Open remaining the one major title missing from his record. And New York golf crowds have now been cited by 2 separate broadcast organizations in under 9 months for conduct that crossed a documented line. The USGA hasn't said a word. The crowd got what it wanted for 4 hours, then watched Clark lift the trophy anyway. What happens next time? Subscribe. You'll hear it here first.